guys, it's Grace with Grace Gets Gastric, and I'm here today for a chatty get ready with me video talking all about fat phobia, diet culture, and the weight loss surgery community and weight loss surgery in general, and are just my space within, you know, the intersection of all of those things, because that's where my head is at right now. I recently did a video where I wore a look very similar to this, an eye look, and somebody in the comment section said that they would love to see me do it. So I figured that would be a great, this would be a great look to do while I chat. This was inspired by, oh goodness, I'm totally blanking on her name, but she is a fantastic makeup artist who also has a makeup line, and so this was a look that she had on her Instagram, and so that's inspiration, which I will link that original video down below, because hers obviously looks a lot better than mine. But if you were interested in seeing me apply some makeup and talk all about my messed up headspace in terms of all of those things I just talked about, then go ahead and keep on watching. All right, so apologies, I'm going to probably be looking slightly off screen when I'm actually doing my face, just so that I can see things. I'm going to inconsistently mention what I'm using, but I will list everything down below. So I'm going to start with the primer. This is Too Faced primer. And yeah, so if you've been watching my most recent videos, you'll know that I'm kind of going through a transition of sorts. Kind of in like a weird headspace. And you know that I've been thinking a lot about sustainability in my eating, and that is both in terms of the world and what is like best in terms of eating in a way that's sustainable for the planet, and also in terms of just like sustainability in being able to eat this way for the rest of my life, and then kind of really thinking about what I want my life to look like, my relationship to with food to look like. Sorry, this is the NARS Sheer Glow. And yeah, so I've been talking about trying to consume less animal protein, trying to sort of add in foods that were more off limits for me, because I just don't want to live my life with things that are off limits, and kind of figuring out what that looks like, because I also don't want to regain my weight. Sorry, my cat is by the window. I had to close the window because it's really loud outside, but now she's upset that I did that. So you're gonna hear some sounds. Can't control it, I'm sorry. So I read this book, and so this is more thoughts were inspired by this book. And so the book is Anti-Diet by Christy Harrison, and it's all about intuitive eating. And it is obviously very anti-diet, and it's definitely a thought-provoking book, and a book I would recommend people read. It's gonna confront some stuff, particularly for us in this community. You know, she mentions bariatric surgery not favorably, and not necessarily in a like you're trash if you got it, but just in a like you're sort of putting off the inevitable. And you know, regain is a very common story in our community. I can think of 10 people off the top of my head that have come back recently with regain stuff, which it's normal, it's common, but you kind of wonder why. You know, like there is a plethora of research out there that really essentially says long-term weight loss is not possible, right? Like most people will regain the weight, which is upsetting as someone who's lost weight and wants to keep it off. And you also sorry, this cat is like making me lose my train of thought. So we know that it is difficult to maintain long-term weight loss. And even if you do maintain it, there is a degree of difficulty. Like, and you've heard people talk in this community, right, about this is something I'm gonna have to think about for the rest of my life, right? Like, I'm always gonna have to be aware of these things. And that is also a little bit terrifying. to think about there's literally no respite. And if you stop if you stop paying attention, you're one of the regain stories, right? It also, so I'm like, okay, to a certain extent, regain is a bit inevitable, but how much regain is okay with me, right? And so I've been thinking a lot about diet culture, and I've thought this for a while in terms of people I've been following in the weight loss space, but I've also always been somebody who's like, live and let live. Like, what people are doing is essentially none of my business. And so I certainly feel like some of the dieting behaviors exhibited in our community, and exhibited in the world, right? Like, our community is sort of a microcosm of the greater dieting community, which is really the Western societies, that diet culture is American, is the Western, world. Just some kind of like unhealthy behaviors. And it's interesting thinking about the fact that while I feel like I've been quite successful in my surgery so far, I'm 2.5 years out and have essentially maintained my 120 pound weight loss, right? I am, the lowest weight I saw was right after plastic surgery. I then immediately bounced right back up to my weight that I was at during plastic surgery, the weight that I had been maintaining. So even though I had 15 pounds of skin removed, I immediately bounced that 15 pounds back up to essentially be back at the maintenance weight that I had beforehand, even though theoretically you would think that I would just be now maintaining at that lower weight. No. Again, it's hard to know because quarantine happened, and that was obviously a difficult time. But yeah, I would say I'm successful in terms of weight loss so far, but it's only, 2.5 years seems like a lot, but it's really not in the scheme of things, right? It's particularly in my life. I still have spent the majority of my life fat, far longer than I've been straight sized. So, just thinking about, I was never really someone who yo-yo dieted. I dieted primarily, my main dieting time was when I was a teenager and even younger, when my parents were kind of forcing me. Once I went out on my own, I essentially stopped dieting altogether. I had quite a negative association. I don't know, a lot of people have positive associations with dieting, but it was very much forced upon me. I had some pretty traumatic stuff in regards to weight and dieting just with my parents and my childhood, and I stopped doing it. Basically my first diet as an adult was my medically supervised diet for weight loss surgery. I think that, to be honest, is a big part of why I'm successful, because I didn't fuck up my metabolism a ton. But before I had surgery, I lost this weight, I was essentially intuitively eating. And I do want to say this book, Anti-Diet, was very interesting. It brought up a lot of stuff. I don't necessarily agree with all of it. So I'm definitely not saying this is like a blanket amazing book. There were definitely some points that I disagreed with. And one of them is this talk about set weight, which I actually do think is kind of a thing. We've seen it a lot when you start losing weight. My body seems to be pretty happy in the 190s, regardless of what I do in the matter. And I could get lower, but I'm already eating, I'm eating a small amount. So 190s seems to be good for me. I'm not too upset about it. God, I'm sorry. My hair is just driving me crazy. But before I had surgery, I was maintaining 330 for years. And I can't get with the idea that my set weight that my body should be at is 330 pounds. I think being 190 is much more reasonable. And this is still a body that would be considered borderline obese by medical professionals. I am like literally right on the cusp, 5-10 pound. I fluctuate between overweight and obese essentially. And yet another reason why I think the BMI is bullshit, and racist and sexist and all sorts of things. But my point is, I have a hard time thinking like, oh yeah, I should have been obese, or not even. and I don't like those terms, but I should have been super fat, that was my weight I should be at. And obviously, like, there's this fear of getting back to that point, right? It's hard because I do see the value in rejecting diet culture. I am at a point right now, and especially right now because I'm quite privileged in my size, my current size, right? And any additional weight I want to lose is motivated by vanity and fat phobia, right? Like there she is. There is no reason that I need to lose any more weight. I can fit into all the clothes I want to do. I can do everything I want to do. And there was a point in the book that she says, you know, when people are talking about health, right? Like health is a big motivator. And she makes some claims about obesity and health that I disagree with. That essentially there's not enough research that says that fat is the thing that causes all these health problems because, and I do agree, there are so many other factors that are inextricably tied. Weight stigma has been shown to lead to negative health outcomes. A lot of people who are in larger bodies are often have other things going against them, like they are in a lower socioeconomic bracket that tends to lead to poorer health outcomes, racism, that all, you know, so I get that there are other things tied into it. I believe that those have an impact, but I don't believe that you can just say that obesity is not a huge health risk. I don't believe that. I do, however, agree that health is not a moral obligation. I don't think that someone who is unhealthy is less morally deserving of things than someone who is healthy. I think that is an issue I have and I've always had with our society, is this idea that if you're fat and you're unhealthy, you're a burden on society and you are less deserving of things. I think that's total bullshit. And I don't think that anyone is morally obligated to care about their health. It's not your business. And so I do take issue with that, as health as a moral obligation. But she said something about, sorry, I'm getting off track a little bit, and you know, I knew this video was going to be rambly. And I'm using my Pat McGrath little Sublime palette. But she said, okay, if I came to her at 330 pounds and was saying, like, I really want to do this for my health, which was true. But it wasn't the only thing. And I've said that before. But if she had said, okay, if I could take away, if you could do everything that you wanted to do right now at your current size, you didn't have diabetes anymore, you didn't have any of your health issues, and you were able to go up the stairs without getting winded and walk as long as you want, all this stuff, would you still want to lose weight? And the answer is yes, right? And so then that does kind of show you how much fat phobia is influencing you, right? Because as much as that was a legitimate influence for me, I really did want to be healthy and healthy, as I wanted to get rid of my diabetes because I had seen firsthand, you know, my mom has issues with her feet because of her diabetes. She has to take insulin. I didn't want that for myself. So that was a legitimate thing. And things like travel. And to a certain extent, some of the things I wanted are things that our society has not provided for us. And that is on them. That is on society, right? The ability to be able to go into clothing stores and find stuff that fits me. The fact that I couldn't do that at my bigger size is a societal failing, not a personal failing. And so some of the things I wanted, to be able to fit into airplane seats, to be able to fit into booths, those are things that I shouldn't have to be responsible for, that we as individuals should not be responsible for. And that is, you know, a societal bias against larger bodied people. And I do think that is a problem that we need to be working to fix. Similarly, but on a different note though, like the actual physical things that I can be able to do, like being able to hike Machu Picchu, which was a bucket list item for me that I could not do at my larger size. And I was not inactive. You know, like a lot of times people are like, oh, you know, you can build up your resistance, and you can to a certain extent, but I would not have been able to do those things at my previous size. And to say otherwise, I think again is maybe some people could have, maybe some 330 pound people could have, but I couldn't. And so those were like legitimate things that I'm grateful for. And I think that's part of why, I'm gonna try to, part of why I struggle so much with this idea of a fuck diet culture and intuitive eating, because while I appreciate it, now that I've experienced what it's like to live life in this body, I don't want to give that up. Which is maybe, like, not great. Sorry, I'm trying to concentrate. Like, long term, I don't know if that's gonna have negative consequences, right? I don't know yet what it's like to have to live and maintain this body. Not really. To an extent, I do, because it's been like a year of maintenance. Yeah, I'd say like solid year of me being essentially at the same weight. But what's a year in terms of my life, right? So like, I've always been a big proponent of tracking, and I've been kind of reevaluating that lately. Because like, that is a quite disordered thing to like feel like you can't eat unless you are tracking exactly how much you're eating, right? Food has always been like a joyful thing in my life, and I don't want to lose that either. And so I think I've kind of, in some ways, been rediscovering that. Just the beauty of food in a way. And like, I don't know, I don't want to be scared of food. And I don't want to constantly be living my life terrified of gaining weight, you know? And it's like, there's a monetary concern in there as well. Like, I think, I'm buying new clothes. I can afford to keep rebuying clothes if I'm like changing sizes, which I think is something that is maybe not always taken into account when people are like, you can fluctuate. But there's also like a good amount of vanity in it, right? I look at photos of me from right after plastics when I'm at my lowest, and I would be lying if I said that there's not like a part of me that wants that back. And for no real reason, right? Like, I mean, other than like, society has told me that is more attractive. And so I see that as more desirable. But that body can't do anything that this body can't do. And in fact, this body can do more than that body could do, because that body was 4 weeks out of plastics and couldn't do shit. So, like, to look at this, a body that was still healing, right? That was still in recovery, and be envious of that, when really the body I have now is so much more capable than that one was. And that's just kind of a mind trip to realize, like you really are kind of confronted with your fat phobia, right? And I do think, because I've been fat, like, it's internalized fat phobia, right? Like, I get to say that. People who've never been fat do not have internalized fat phobia. They just have fat phobia. But people who have been fat, lucky us, like, this is all coming from a very internalized place, because I lived, and you know, and that's what I have to keep, like, almost remembering, right? Like, for all that this is my reality now, I was fat for far longer than I have been straight sized, right? I don't remember a time where I wasn't considered, when I wasn't super fat. And I am trying consciously to not use words like obesity, as, you know, which are slurs. And yeah, you know, like, and again, I wasn't a baby fat. I wasn't a small fat, and that is nothing against those people. But even for people who had bariatric surgery, you know, the ones that the barely qualifying spectrum, and again, not talking shit about any of them, but they're, you know, I was on the, like, I was a high BMI. I was a high weight. You know, I had 100, you know, if we're going by BMI, I had 150 pounds to lose, easy. Well, I mean, for my high weight, for my surgery weight, I had even 150 pounds to lose. You know, and again, I think BMI to an extent is bullshit. I think given my frame, this is a great weight for me. But it does not stop me from thinking about having a smaller weight, which I don't like. I don't like that I'm thinking of, that I'm constantly critiquing things. And I do think, to an extent, for all that I do credit the weight loss surgery community being involved here, for helping me be successful in weight loss, I also think that it can be quite harmful in ways. I think the fact that I constantly am, like, checking in does create a pressure to be perfect, right? Like, I think maybe there's already a sense of, like, weight loss, again, being thin and healthy is a moral obligation. And so when you gain weight, there's, like, a sense of guilt and shame in that, like a sense of failure. When I don't think that should necessarily be the case. And, you know, I haven't really been posting before and afters. I've been feeling quite meh about them and that message that it sends, because, and again, I've talked about some of this stuff in my recent videos, but I don't want to be sending the message that there is something wrong with me before. And I've, again, a lot of the stuff I've talked about before on my channel, right? Like, this is not necessarily new, because I have always, you know, from the beginning, right? One of my first videos was thoughts from the before picture. I never hated myself. I didn't hate my weight. I didn't hate being fat. There are certainly things now that I'm thinner, that I kind of realized that I was holding myself back in a lot of ways. And a lot of that is because of society, the way that society viewed people, and my experiences within society. Shit that I had internalized, that I had kind of let affect me. And in a lot of ways, I'm really sad for that. You know, losing the weight has certainly allowed me to kind of come out of my shell in a way I didn't realize I was in a shell. It's kind of allowed me to be my more authentic self. And that makes me sad that I wasn't able to have that. And while I cannot regret having the surgery, but there are times where, you know, I wonder, you know, if I could have gotten to a place where of happiness and acceptance where I am, where I was. I don't regret losing the weight, but yeah, sometimes I do. I do wonder, was it the only option, you know? but yeah, but again, at the same token, I can't say I wouldn't do it again. Even with all of the shit that comes along with it. And there is, you know, like we changed our stomachs. We forever changed our physical bodies, and you know, like we'll never be able to consume things the same way again. I don't think I will, at least. I mean, you have people talking about how you know, oh, I'm 5 years out and everything's back to normal. I don't necessarily believe that. I don't believe it for myself, at least. I think I'm kind of at a point where how I can eat now is probably how I'll be able to eat forever. And there is certainly restriction there in a way that I am both happy and unhappy about. And so I you know, I have this internal restriction. There are obviously ways to get around it depending on what you're eating, how frequently you're eating. But I essentially have this, I don't want to call it disordered eating tool, but like a tool that is sort of forever restricting me and forever preventing me from, I don't know, eating any particular kind of way. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but I don't necessarily think it's good either. And yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's this weird place where I'm like, I don't want to gain weight, but I want to be able to eat in a way that is intuitive and that doesn't ever feel restrictive. And it's like, those kind of feel like opposing things. Like they sort of feel like they're not both possible. And I'm certainly not saying, you know, by wanting to be able to eat intuitively, like I want to be able to eat chocolate cake every single day and never have to worry about gaining weight. But I guess I don't want gaining weight to always be the first thing on my mind. I don't want to constantly be thinking about food and my weight and how I look. And that's what I mean when I you know, when I talk about how I feel like my eating is more disordered now than it ever was when I was 350 pounds. Because I have never thought about food as much as I do now. I'm always thinking about food. I'm always thinking about my next meal. I have set meal times because I like eating so much and I think about food so much. It's hard for me to not eat even when I'm not necessarily hungry. Yeah. I don't, you know, I have certainly more binging mentality than I did before. I would say I mean, I ate a lot pre-op, right? That was my thing, was just consuming a lot of food. I had a very large stomach. And now, but it wasn't ever in a binging way, you know. It was, it's weird to think like, or to even say, or to try to, you know, like say to people, or, you know, yeah, I was over 300 pounds, but I wasn't eating in a disordered way. Because people, you know, like people don't think that's possible to like eat yourself that big and not have disordered eating. And certainly I was using food to soothe. I stress ate, I bored ate. But that is something I think about too, is, you know, like with the pandemic right now. If people are eating to cope, like, is that such a terrible thing that we need to, like, I don't know, demonize it? And I think that's part of it, is just like all of the rhetoric around weight gain during COVID has maybe brought out more of this stuff for me. But yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a very rambly video, which I knew it would be. There is a lot to unpack here. And I don't have the answers, clearly. I just know that, I have to be so careful too with speaking, just because, as I've said before, I'm very much a live and let live. You do you, boo. I don't care. I don't feel like I have the right to comment on how you're living your life. A lot of people don't feel that way. And particularly when you start getting into diets, I never want to be the kind of person that can't hear a critique of my way of life or eating without going into freak out mode. And so like, I happen to follow a lot of people who are keto. That's great for them. I do not think that's a good way of eating. I would not personally do it. I can't personally advocate for it. I think that sort of restrictive eating is super mentally damaging. And again, and like, there's not really any way for me to say that without people taking to offense who do keto. And that's great. If it works for you, then that's great. I have no interest in it. And I have increasingly been struggling to watch people who are zealots of it. And most people who do keto seem to be zealots, in a similar way with veganism, right? I mean, I feel like those are kind of common, diets pit against each other, partially because they're commonly, they tend to attract extreme personalities, because when you are cutting out so many food groups, I think that requires a lot of dedication, and you have to really believe in what you're doing in order for that to work for you, because it's hard. And for me, that would be such a trigger for me, to try to eat that way, which is why I never have. And I don't, and I thought, oh, like maybe I'll try it and see, I just become increasingly, sure that, it's just not, mentally a healthy place for me to be. Yeah, sorry, that kind of this whole talk kind of went all over the place, which I figured it would, because I am all over the place right now. I am not really sure what I think, what I feel, where I'm at. I just know that I want something different, I think, for myself. And I think part of that involves making some peace with not losing this last 20 pounds, and I don't know. Anyways, here's the finished look. I'm sure it looks a little bit different from the last time I did it because I used different products. But I will, as I mentioned before, I'll link the original inspiration down below, where she does a much better job of doing it in general. Thank you guys for listening to my ramble. Like I said, this is really just kind of talking things out, and kind of, I don't know, like I said, as I try to figure stuff out, I don't know what the effects will be in terms of me and this community and my output, and my participation in it, because I'm still figuring out if I can be present here, and do what I need to do for my own health and mental health and sanity. I know, I made such great friends here. I've had some really wonderful connections. I love all your guys' comments. And I know a lot of you guys appreciate hearing these thoughts of mine, and I have enjoyed sharing them. And I'm not saying I'm leaving or anything by any means just yet, but it is part of the things I'm evaluating is even, can I be in a healthy spot for myself while still engaging in these places that I am not sure are healthful for me anymore. So I'm sure you'll hear more about this as I continue to struggle through it, but thank you guys so much for watching. I love all of you guys. Thank you for being here, and I'll talk to y'all very soon.